Yo, 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 Let's Vibe TV is here on Blackout Tuesday. And I got a very special guest with a lot to talk about. The MC turned activist, not quite politician, but man on a mission trying to reshape people's ideas and put leadership in places where it is not. Formerly known as Mac Dot, now known as Arthur Haynes, is here with me today. And let's give him a drum roll, please. Hey,
What's going on, y'all?
hey. What's up, my
What's
G?
going
How
on?
are
What's
you
going
doing?
on? I'm
Uh,
good, bro. I'm good, man. How about
so,
yourself?
man, chilling, trying to chill with all this craziness going on in this universe of ours. Just
Yeah.
trying to have a good day, trying to be easy, trying to entertain and educate always for all days. Hey, it's Blackout
That's right.
Tuesday. And guess what? I'm in a great mood. You want to know why?
Talk to me.
Because
Why
it's
you in such a great mood today, man?
because it's been around forever, for years, like as long as Facebook, and has always been ignored, and it is being celebrated by everybody, black, white, Mexican. And see, a lot of people don't even know the origin of it. So we should start off right there. Educate, teach, inspire. Tell them about the history of Blackout Tuesday.
Well, the history of Blackout Tuesday, to be totally honest with you, I'm pretty sure you got more knowledge about that than I do, but I do know that it has been around for a very long time. I've been seeing it on social media myself for well over 10, 15 years. And like you said, there's never been the people acting on it in unison like it has today. Like, so that's definitely something to celebrate and something to champion and something to point out. Um, you can actually see the unity over the years. We've been hoping for it and we've been waiting on it, and to now actually be able to see it, yeah, that's definitely something to celebrate.
And even bigger than that, it's like well, black businesses are getting supported today as well. I've seen many people asking, because that's the whole purpose of it. Um,
Right.
Blackout Tuesday is to show black people's economic power in
Right.
society, and taking it away from contemporary culture, and only putting our money in black businesses that day, and showing the impact of a us supporting one another, and and b and b the power that we have in our economy that gets slept
Yeah.
on.
Our consumer buying power. We as a race of individuals um in this country, our consumer buying power is the strongest of any other race.
Oh
Somewhere
wow.
upwards of $3 trillion a year, just in our community, African American community. Not even counting the Latino community and all the other communities. Just the African American community alone, upwards of $3 trillion a year that we spend in the economy as consumers. The
Trillions.
biggest consumer buying power force on the planet. That's what
Well,
we are, and we
and
don't even know
and
the
that's
power
not
that we have.
and that's not even including our impact as far as swag and influence on what people decide to purchase. Don't
Right.
even let me step into that box, because then,
Hey,
hey,
just
it's
just mentioning that,
mhm.
along with the topic that we started with, just mentioning what you just mentioned, that's like, you know, that's the proof right there. Who runs everything, right? Like, if you think about it, if you want to break it down and get real analytical, that's the proof just in that statement. And that's the power that we have, and we don't own it. And that's the problem that we have.
Exactly. We don't even acknowledge it. We've almost been tricked into not acknowledging it even. It's
Yeah.
really weird how that has played. But also the deeper underlying purpose of Blackout Tuesday is a representation of Black Wall Street being looted and burnt to the ground by white
Yep.
people
Right.
and never built back up. They were
Right.
never able to regain the power, and it was called Black Wall Street because for the listeners, it was called Black Wall Street because it was a whole economy of black businesses, a fully black infrastructure. There was no what's the Caucasian influence on the economy. Uh,
European influence.
oh gosh,
If we're gonna be politically correct.
man.
But yeah, a lot of people don't really know the history of behind Black Wall Street, and even the history and the knowledge that me, myself, and you might have about it is limited. You know what I'm saying? I would encourage any individual who really thinks they know about Black Wall Street to dig deeper, and then the individual who never heard of it to start digging. You know what I'm saying? Because that's something that's very important in terms of the African American culture in America. And it also ties into a very important holiday that's coming up, which is Juneteenth. All of these things tie into our history and tie into who we are in this country. And until we tap into this history and tap into the full understanding of who we are and who we have always been in this country, we'll never understand our full power and never understand how to move in this country in a way that prevents us from always being the victim, always being the person looked down upon, and always being that individual that's looked at as someone who needs a handout or help from another race, class, or whatever it may be. So until we come into full realization of who we are as people, I don't think that we will ever see that collective front that we all yearn for. You know what I'm saying?
Now, okay. So now to get into talking to you, because we just talked about something really important and that I feel like is a great segue. Um, Confidence. They stripped, they saw a community that was gaining confidence and proving to black people what wool had been pulled over their eyes as
True.
far as the fact that they could support each other on their own. And so when they did that and they took that away, it's like that glimmer of hope was, it was like a statement. If you guys try anything or to build your own shit, this is what's gonna happen. It's pointless. Don't even waste your fucking time. And so, and it left you stuck in a box, kind of. Now, growing
Right.
up, you've seen the bigger picture in a very small minded area. Uh, let's, can we talk about your upbringing? Can we talk about like what brought you to be able to see what was happening to you
Well,
with so
it's kind
much
of
deception and tricks?
yeah, and it's hard to describe, that moment of realization where when it occurred, when you really realize like, hey, I've been duped, I've been led astray, I've been basically sold a lie. Once you hit that moment in life, trying to recollect on that moment is hard, but once you hit that moment, there's no other alternative at that point other than to switch gears, shift your entire life from one gear to the next.
Right,
And that usually means a full 360, in most cases, especially when you come from upbringing of poverty, upbringing of, growing up in high crime areas and dealing with basically the scum of the earth and everything that comes with that. You know what I'm saying? When you deal with that early in life and you're exposed to nothing but that in life, you things like recidivism, things like high incarceration rates amongst certain groups of people, and things like that are inevitable, right? They create these environments where you cannot thrive, but you figure out a way to thrive, and those methods usually involve crime or usually involve some form of a legal or illicit activity, right? And as time goes on, this is your environment. You become a product of that, and this becomes who you are, your character, and this become the person that you are. These are the things that you do to get by in life. Myself, that was the path that I was on. A very unfortunate path, and a path that a lot of my friends and family members were never steered away from. And I was lucky enough to be able to see the results of walking down that path early in life, and knew that I didn't want to have to deal with some of the results that came with living that lifestyle. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have the option. I knew the route that I wanted to take. I knew that I didn't want to live a life of crime. I knew that I didn't want to be that kind of person that I've seen so many other people in my community become, but
Real
I didn't
quick,
have an option. I didn't have an
so,
outlet.
Simone, we're talking about basically today is about black equity. That's basically,
Yes.
if we were to talk about what overall and how to recognize black equity, and also, well, above all, well, many layers of it, and we're also going to be talking about what's going on in America and how to actually make this effective as well. But right now, Arthur's talking about his come up and his realization and his growth because he is a community activist. And while a lot of you guys have been protesting for 2 days, he has been out there telling people to vote for years. For years. He's ran himself uh, and has really put his money where his mouth is in the community. He started his own clothing brand and has tried to empower the least powered, the most hopeless part of our town. So we're going to be getting into all of that today on Blackout Tuesday. So it's an absolute blessing to have you
Yes, indeed.
talking about all of these kind of things because people need to know. One of my peoples called me yesterday and said, "Yo, let's break it down like this. These people think they're winning, but how do you think they got the guns that they have from the government? This
Yeah.
has to be considered. We're outpowered, and also when things were going, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But we were talking about at that moment worth and how you came to realizing your worth, and also when you came to that moment how you got about being able to exercise it, and you were talking
Well,
about your 360.
yeah, the 360 occurred, like I said, a moment in life where you're not really paying attention and you're just really more focused on being a better you. And you don't really get to celebrate that moment. It kind of happens in the midst of everything. But when you come to that full realization, you're usually years beyond being that different person, and years into being that different person, years into that life of being a new person. And that's when you realize it, and then you can reflect back on all of those things that got you to where you are at that point of realization. And for me personally, it was my daughter, the birth of my daughter, that really, re-geared my mind state, and the things that I thought were important, and the things that I thought that I prioritized in my life. You know what I'm saying? So definitely moving to Bloomington was one of the biggest turning points in my life. That took me away from that environment where all you see is people that look like you. All you know how to communicate with and vibe with is people that look like you. Coming to Bloomington at such an early age exposed me to different cultures, exposed me to different lifestyle, a different school culture, work culture, community culture, something that I was never ever exposed to, used to, and thought I would never be exposed to. And that's what gave me the edge over, people who came from my community, people who came from the exact same background as me, being able to move in
Where were
different.
you from initially then?
I'm from Chicago. I'm from 35th and State, 2 blocks from the White Sox Park. Um, One of the worst neighborhoods in
Right.
Chicago, Stateway Gardens, Chicago Housing Authority project, high rise building, 17-story high rise buildings. The building I grew up in is taller than every building in this town. You know what I'm saying? And you grow up, you watching everything happen. Everything that you see on the movies here in Bloomington, I was growing up as a child experiencing those things, the robberies, the rapes, the murders, the everything. And this is the culture of my community. So 11, 12, 13 years old, these aren't things that are outlandish to see or hear about. These are normal things at that age. You know what I'm saying? So from 13 to 15, you're transitioning from being so normalized to violence and crime. You're transitioning into how to monetize these crimes to your benefit, or getting away from them, or whatever your at that point in life. Just think about that. 12, 13, 14 years old, having to make those life decisions. Which path are you going to walk down at 12 or 13 years old? And that decision at that age, at that moment, in that environment, that's actual, and you have to make a decision, and then in that moment you have to stick with it. So, and 90% of the people choose the culture that they've been exposed to since they were probably in diapers. What they know, right? Crime, what they know, right? Getting over, finessing, or whatever they call it nowadays. And me being fortunate enough to be exposed to the Bloomington community and culture in 1995 is when I moved to Bloomington. I was 15 years old. At that time, I had been arrested maybe 8 or 9 times, each crime more serious than the last. Armed robbery, strong arm robbery, unlawful use of weapons, crimes that like career criminals haven't been charged with. I was charged with that before the age of 15 on several occasions. So I was going down that path where, what they say in the streets is it's kind of like a ritual, or kind of like a motto. There's only 2 ways out of the street life: dead or in jail, right? And those are the rules, though. That's inevitable. I was headed down that path, and luckily for me, my father and my stepmother, they took the initiative to remove me from my environment and give me a chance. And that's what Bloomington did for me. You know what I'm saying? My parents brought me here, but being exposed to this community and what this community represents, what the people in this community represents, that's why you have who you have today, and not what I could have been. So when we
Wow.
think about the events that happened in the past 48 hours in this community, for me, it's completely unacceptable. Like, I've lived here. I'll be 40 years old in July. I've lived in this town since 1995. More than half of my life I've been here. I've seen Bloomington. When we moved here, we moved in Sunnyside. Most beautiful apartment complex I've ever seen in my life when I moved here in 1995. Clean, not a piece of trash on the ground, flower beds in front of every apartment, um, personable neighbors. Like it was like heaven when we moved here. And to see people talk about Sunnyside and the regards that they do, and the way that they regard any of these housing complexes in this town in comparison to the ones that I grew up in. Like, come on. And I know there's a lot of people watching from Chicago right now that can testify. Like, this is heaven compared to the real projects. You know what I'm saying? Where kids like myself don't make it out of there. I'm a people try to say I'm a success story. I'm not a success story. And shit about what I've accomplished in life, I consider a success. You know what I'm saying? I'm so far behind because I was so oppressed and so misled and so misguided for so long. I should have 3 doctorate degrees right now. You're
Yeah.
telling me I'm a success
Oh,
story?
and I
No,
feel
I'm not a
like,
success story in my eyes. I'm way behind. Yes, I'm doing amazing things. Yes, I've excelled way beyond anything that I could imagine, or a lot of other people. But a success story, there's a lot more to this story. You know what I'm saying, bro? Like,
well, It's
I think we
crazy
sell ourselves short, bro.
because you said that the bad areas of Bloomington, when you got there, it felt like you made it to heaven because it was so much different from before. I feel like a privileged, like jerk, kind of, for being so hateful towards
Well,
Bloomington.
just a
I guess.
clarification on what I really meant was I've watched Bloomington go from, riches to rags. I've
Oh,
watched Sunnyside. I watched Sunnyside go from what it was to what it is now. I've
okay.
watched the West Side community go from being regarded to a uplifting community, a responsive community, a involved community, just like the East Side. When I moved here, everything was equal. I watched the West Side get disinvested in. I watched the businesses leave this community. I watched the city council and the county board disinvest in our community over the years. I watched the food desert develop in my neighborhood. I watched this shit. I lived it. You know what I'm saying? So can't nobody tell me shit about the West Side and the economic status of the West Side and access and equality in
Well,
West Bloomington. I
we're
lived it. I watched it get taken away from us year after year after year. And now what we have is a community that's completely disinvested in by our city officials, completely disinvested in by every organization that has an interest
not,
in affordable housing, feeding the homeless, any kind of resources for low income or moderately income households. Like, they left us, bro. We on the West Side. They don't give a shit about us. They're not doing nothing for us. Nobody.
can
They,
you explain what that means? And also, like, this is happening everywhere. It's not like it's just happening there. And can you,
right.
because
And that's
also,
important.
and
That's important to mention.
let's start off and let's slow down a little bit and let's get into problems that you started recognizing in the community and how you started to help in the roadblocks. Break it down, because what you mean is so much heavier than I think how people are taking it. So, break down when you decided that you wanted to make it a better place, and what you did, and what's been effective and what's not.
Well, that's a good topic to touch on. To be totally honest with you, bro, this community activism and this sense of community being a community liaison or however people want to categorize it, that's nothing that I inherited here. I, Despite what I grew up in, the circumstances, the environment that I grew up in, I will not take away from the sense of unity that we had in that community. I would never take away from the sense of security that every resident in that housing development had. One thing about the projects in Chicago is how I like to categorize it. It's a different world. It's a world within a world. So you're in Chicago, but when you step into the projects, it's a whole different. All the rules change. Everything is different. It's a world within a world, and within that world, everybody who lives there and who's privy to everything that comes with it, you are protected better than the president. Like, can't nobody touch you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have this sense of I don't know, privilege that comes with being from that. And you have the Robert Taylor homes, you have the Cabrini Greens, you have the Ickeys, the Ida B. Wells, the uh, Lake Forest, Park Forest, every kind of complex you could think of. And it's the same culture in every complex. You cannot go in any housing complex in Chicago and touch nobody who live there if you're not from there. You can't even raise your voice over there if you're not from there. I'm
And like,
just saying, it's a
it's not
sense of
even a
family.
joke, right? It's a
I'm
literal
serious,
thing.
bro. It's a sense of family that you can never get nowhere else on this planet. If you from there, everybody know everybody. I'm talking about a small community within a major city, 2,000-3,000 people within the five to seven buildings, these 17-story buildings, two sides to each building, 400 apartments on each side, 5 or 6 people in each apartment, thousands and thousands of people stacked on top of each other. And everybody know everybody, first name basis, went to school with everybody, grew up, slept on each other's couches, sleep on. We're all family. The whole project. You can't get that nowhere on the planet, man. And that's what a lot of people are missing. A lot of people don't know how to function without that because that's all they ever knew. And that takes me back to what I was saying earlier. I was blessed and fortunate enough to be taken out of that environment early in life and brought to Bloomington. 14, 15 years old, and being able to go back and forth years in Chicago, years back in Bloomington, years in Chicago as my life progressed. So I got to be able to be in the streets and be in the heart of the worst the most gutter environments, and also be in the boardrooms and learning, constantly learning how to evolve at the same time. That's what's my leg up. I don't contribute any of my advancements in life to anything that came later in life. It all comes from growing up in the projects. It all comes from being exposed to life so early that by the time you're 14, 15 years old, you can read people's body language. A motherfucker can't even lie to you. They can't look at you in your eyes and lie to you because you can read them. Because you encountered so many individuals on
Right.
on a frequent basis, like just standing in the project hallways. Every drug is being trafficked. Every booster in Chicago, if they stole anything from anywhere in the city or surrounding suburbs, it all comes to the projects because there's an unlimited supply of money, unlimited supply of drugs, unlimited supply of everything negative in the project. So you don't have to leave, right? Because everything comes to you. So you find yourself in an environment where, imagine this, 35th and State Street, 2 blocks from the White Sox Park, 1 block literally across the street from the Illinois Institute of Technology, one of the most prestigious technology schools in America. Bill Gates' kids, the Clintons' kids, Chelsea, all these elites, their children went to this school. And right across the street is this project where all of these horrible things are happening. You have the corporate America and you have the ghetto this close to each other. That's what I grew up. That's what I grew up in. Looking out of my project window, seeing these rich ass white kids walking on the opposite side of the streets, walking past me, getting dropped off in limousines and all this crap getting dropped off to school in the morning. And this is what you see on the movies. So you know who these people are. You know where
Right.
they are as far as socioeconomic background. All of that is mental. It's damaging you. It's making you think less of yourself, right? Everything in the environment that I grew up in, even your own conscience, was designed to break you down. And for a person like myself or any individual to survive that, anybody that made it out of the projects and still alive and paying their bills and got a house and a car in the most basic shit, that is a success story. That's the fucking success story. Making it out of there alive
Well,
with your
so
mental intact.
and
You
so
know what I'm saying?
you say that the negativity comes from the access to drugs, uh, or to criminal enterprises, I guess. Where does that come from? Because I think that there's a big misconception about, like, oh, like, he chose a life of crime. How can a
No,
life how did
no.
how can a life of yeah, explain, break that down, because my audience, I think, is usually not
Yeah,
the
they don't
to
get it.
understand,
No one can perceive. No one can perceive in their minds
not
that
having a
they're
choice, right?
now. If it's one individual, I'm going to give you a scenario, but no one can perceive in their minds that this is an actual scenario. Now, if they can perceive that this can possibly be an actual scenario in their minds, the way they see it, that's far and in between. It may happen once or twice here or there. No one, even African Americans can conceive, even people who grew up in the projects. They get out, if they never had an understanding of depression and understanding of post-traumatic stress or stress, trauma, actual trauma in the making, if they don't understand that, they don't know what's going on, they'll never be able to analyze it and heal, right?
Right.
So lots of people. I'll just say most people will say that, you know, PTSD or this or whatever is not real. I never really thought about it like that. But in my community, growing up, and we're seeing it today, and like you said, a lot of your audience don't know, but a lot of them are starting to recognize that, you know, the scales are tipped in their favor. Even if they didn't ask, it's tipped in the favor of people who are non-people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, even your audience, they understand that there are injustices and there are inequalities for people of color in this country. But to give them a better understanding of why people from the ghetto are more prone to be criminals rather than productive citizens such as myself,
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to a simple statement: being a product of your environment. I'm My mom worked for Hartunian, Futterman, and Howard, a law firm downtown Chicago, the People's Gas building. Before Nicor and all that, it was the People's Gas way back when I was a kid. That was the only gas company in Illinois. Every city in Illinois had a People's Gas. Their headquarters is downtown Bloomington. My mom worked for one of the top law firms in Chicago all my life growing up. So I always had access outside of the ghetto, and I always had access to different cultures and different social economic backgrounds. I didn't understand what that meant as a kid from the ghetto. I used to go to my mom's job every Thursday. She got me on a CTA train by myself, went downtown, Lake Street, Lake and Wabash. And I get off, I walk 2 blocks, go upstairs to 44th floor to my mom's job. Barbara was the receptionist at the front desk. She give me some cash out the petty cash box. I go to the break room, give me some popcorn, some orange Minute Maid, and wait for my mom to go on break and come hang out with me. We read books, talk, whatever. We get off work, take a bus ride home. Every day, most of my life. So I was exposed to different cultures. That's what gave me the advantage. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for me being my mom being outside of the neighborhood, my dad moving me to Bloomington, I would not be here right now. I would be dead or I would be in jail for killing somebody. Those are my only options. I knew that, I accepted it, I owned it, and that's what I knew my life was going to turn out to be. I was either going to die in a hail of bullets or I was going to kill somebody, and I was going to be in jail for the rest of my life. That's the cycle. That's all I saw. I have several brothers that have been in jail for murder. Several brothers, cousins, all my friends, all their friends, all my life. That's all I watch. My friends and family get killed or go to jail. You either die or go to jail. The only outcome to the life we was living. No other outcome. At some point, you honor that, you accept it, and you go full speed ahead because you know at that point. I realized that at 17. 17 years old, I was hopeless. In my mind, I had no options. I had no future. I had nothing to aspire to be or to aspire for. I had accepted that I was going to die in a hail of bullets at some point, or I was going to get caught for putting that on somebody else, and I was going to go to jail. And I accepted those two options, and I knew that those were the only two options. And I said to myself, in the meantime, I'm gonna be the biggest, baddest motherfucker running these streets. And that was the mentality. And that's the mentality that comes with being a product of your environment. And that's what we see in African American communities all across America. Children who don't have a choice in the way that they see society, in the way that they see how they should advance in society, in the options that they see that they have for themselves. Not we, America has created this society around Black society that limits us. Um, Minorities, every minority class in America has some kind of limitation. With women, it was the glass ceiling. You know, they always talk about women shattering the glass ceiling when they get these high professional positions with these corporations. With every denominational class or minority class in America, there's some form of oppression, some form of inequality, some form of, mental warfare. All of those equalities tie back to mental warfare. We've never battled on that field. That's why we can't win. By the time we figure out what's going on, they're on to the next mental attack. You know what I'm saying? We can't keep up because we never sat down at the chess table. We're still at the kids' table playing chess. We're still trying to figure out, what happened, and they're working on what they're gonna do the next 5 attacks, and we're still trying to figure out the last attack while we're being attacked currently. You know what I'm saying? We way behind, man, on our responses. We're way behind on our unity. The unity is the very first initial response that's gonna separate us from social media, separate us from all of these illicit platforms in which they give us all of this bad information and
Yeah.
tear
Well,
us and separate us. They continually separate us by giving us information that they know that some of us are gonna take and some of us are gonna destroy. And in that instant, we're separated. We're
well, and
separate.
and even I was thinking about it earlier today. I was thinking about it. Thank you, Kai. Hey, pay attention. The man is speaking the truth, please. We're in here trying to really make this an essential episode. And like educational. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than him. This is real life stuff. I like to joke around. I like to shoot the shit, but at the end of the
Yeah,
day, we have real things going on that are way bigger than this. That at least while Blackout Tuesday is is a relevant thing. I want people to know what's really going on. So
yeah.
sorry if the vibes is high right now, but shit, the vibes are high right now.
It is what it is, man. And as you can see, man, just and your viewers as well, just from the time I've been on this call, like I probably dropped a tear here, a tear there. Like these are things that I'm passionate about, man. This is my life, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this ain't nothing, just a hobby or nothing.
Well, and
If
I
we don't take this serious, if we don't start taking what's going on in our communities serious and stepping up and being accountable for our actions, another question, like what are we really doing? Are
I
we
was I got
perpetuating the problem?
well, that's what I was gonna get into. I'm so glad you said that because what I was gonna ask you was, yo, I thought it was so funny because I was thinking about how we say how we're so mad about colors dividing us, but yet we fly by colors on our own against each other. We turn, oh, is he black and blue? Is he black and red? And so
Right.
we divide each other in our own way. And we find it not only acceptable, we find it almost wrong if you don't pick a side. And even that is another survival tactic, I guess, that like is another thing people don't understand. And I didn't understand necessarily. I'm understanding my privilege. God bless my mom.
Right.
The layers of depth of her is stupid. Um, and the things that she avoided, that she made it so I never had to go through, is outrageous.
That's dope. Now that's dope. That's the point. That's the purpose of every parent's life. Something I always tell, some of my younger friends who have kids and, still trying to figure out, how to balance life and work and parenting and just trying to figure it all out. Like the easiest way to eliminate a lot of the struggle and a lot of the uncertainty that comes with being a parent is to just understand that at that point when you become a parent, your life no longer becomes about what you prioritize. It's about the priorities that are best for your child, whatever they may be. It might be some you totally against. It might be some that you never thought you'd do. But if that is something that you need to prioritize because it's in the best interest of your child, that is the way that you should be moving. And
Yeah.
a lot of us don't live that
Don't
way. A lot of us
hold
don't
on
think
though.
that way. We're selfish
Don't
in a
don't
sense.
don't skip up on. the gang question now. And like, am I crazy if for thinking that about the colors dividing too? Like, and why is
What
that
I think,
overlooked? What makes
what
that
I think
such an
is
acceptable thing while not liking while racism doesn't make sense to them?
right, and it is a catch-22, and it is totally ironic for a person to have any opposition to a white racist or a white nationalist to even say, "Hey, I don't like you because you don't like black people." And that same person who feels that way is an individual who can say to another black person something degrading because their shade of skin may be lighter than that person or darker. And a lot of the explanation behind that is,
Well, and I wasn't talking about, hold on, that's a whole other thing. But even
oh, I
as
thought
far
that's
as
what you meant. I thought that's what
no,
you
as
meant
far as
by,
gangs, it's like created division amongst people who are at like see, even you, I feel like you don't see racism the same as like because if you're a Crip and you see a blood, you're not gonna be friends with them, correct?
right, right,
You dislike them on the basis of a color.
right. Well, in that sense, I know a lot of high level individuals that work through youth services and community services in California, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, and New York, where a lot of these, and even Chicago, a lot of these organizations, the Bloods and Crips, color oriented organizations, Latin Kings, Simon City Royals, all of these different gangs that are really geared towards colors and turf and, the most basic gang rituals, that have carried on into this new millennium. Those particular organizations have evolved a lot, and particularly in West Coast communities where that color kind of thing was really like the basis of all of the gang banging activities or mob action activities was geared towards colors, 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 colors. They've evolved a lot since then, and a lot of those factions who had
And I can
maybe 20, 30-year war rivalries amongst families, like the old days, how the families used to war in the cowboy days. They had those kind of rivalries, and even those families have come together in recent years, to do more human rights activism and community activism and equality activism and things like that. So I don't think that's really the
well,
culture of
well because
gangland in America
well because gangs
today.
started off as something to help the community or at least protect the community. Um
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
so when did that message get lost then? Do you how did that message get lost?
The message of community activism, outreach, and engagement that all of these organizations were founded on, the Black Disciples, Black Gangster Disciples, they all started from the men once they infiltrated that with the COINTELPRO tactics that they have deployed on every mob in America, from the Gangster Disciples to the Vice Lords to every lower level to high level mob has encountered COINTELPRO tactics through the United States government, Department
Can
of
you
Defense,
can you
FBI, CEA.
can
I
you
got you.
people okay.
But to go back, like they use these tactics, right? Where the division comes is when you have these organizations, you have all of these great things going on. The school lunch program that they do at all of the schools across America was stolen from the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party started that summer lunch program. Once they dismantled the Black Panther Party, killed all the leaders, arrested all everybody else, and made them political prisoners, they took everything salvageable that they created in that organization and they turned it into their own, like they've always done. Raped and pillaged entire the entire globe. You know what I'm saying? That's the culture of America. They see somebody doing something that's great, they come and smile and hee hee ha ha. Hey, how'd you do that? Once they figure it out, then they throw you in the cell and create the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the biggest heist in American history, by the way. And they steal every invention, claim it as their own because I own the slave, I own their intellectual property. Now I'm rich overnight because this person, this beast, this animal, this monkey, all the things they call us, he came up with the greatest invention on the planet. How can you justify calling the person all of these things when your mental capacity can't equate to a percentage of theirs? You know what I'm saying? Like, the hypocrisy of America drives America. There's no way that we'll ever thrive in this country. There's no possible way that an African American or any person of color will ever thrive in this country.
Well, unless the system is uh, changed, or unless we.
Right. And what's the possibility of that ever happening? What that entails is, if the system changes, that entails a transfer of power. If the system changes in the least bit, power transfers from them to us. What's the chances of that ever happening? The chances of that ever happening is they would rather elect a fucking imbecile like President Trump. They would rather let somebody like him do all the things that he's done. They would rather let him do all of that before they say that the greatest president in this country was black. We're seeing we're seeing in real time how far they're willing to go to keep us at the bottom.
Yeah.
If this doesn't tell you how far they're willing to go, if having a president like the one we have and having the United States government, every branch of the United States government protect this motherfucker around every corner, if that doesn't tell you that you would never ever have a fair shake in this country, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I don't know what will convey that message to you or any person of color. What we need to do is recreate what we had before this. I, my own personal opinion, before our misguided fight for equality in America. We were just fine being segregated. Not saying that I think the world should be
Now,
segregated.
I
That's
think
not what
you
I'm
have
saying.
to. I think you
Before
have
people say
to.
that.
Hold
But
on,
before
because
we embarked on that
hold
fight,
on,
we
hold
were
on, hold
just
on,
fine.
real quick, because somebody commented, bullshit. My black homies already own their own lane, so I don't think they know how they. Put it in context, what you mean a little bit closer when you say that you'll never, or that black people will never win, or the links that have been gone, uh, to take away, what's to stop black people from winning.
Superiority. White superiority. Let's just put it out there. We don't have to beat around the bush, man. This is America. This shit is real. You're seeing it on camera, on TV. White superiority in America is real, alive, thriving, and well. Um, to put it in perspective, yes, your friends may own land, and that's great. Now, do it per capita. Let's just do a per capita number, not including your friends, but just the racial class of your friends. If your friends are African American, that individual who commented bullshit, my friends own property. If they're African American, let's just
Wait,
say per capita,
well,
one hundred thousand.
I wanted you to explain that. Well, okay.
That number is very
Well,
minuscule. Is all I was gonna say.
what
I was
you
gonna
mean
say your
when
two
you say
friends,
success.
your two
Well, you said
friends
that they have
represent.
their own lane. You're not saying that black people can't be successful. Now, well, and just to play, I'm gonna play devil's advocate with you a little bit, because I wouldn't say it could never happen, but there needs to be more. Well, to slow. I'm not gonna say it could
Man,
never
by the
happen,
time
but
if they ever if we ever
there will
have an
always
equal,
be, hold
if
on,
African
there will always
Americans
be
ever,
somebody at a disadvantage. Is there,
no,
or there
not
will always
somebody,
be
not
somebody
somebody,
hated on.
not somebody, bro,
There'll always be
not
someone
somebody. I'm
hated
not
on.
gonna allow you to do that, bro. I'm not gonna allow you to deflect away from reality. Not somebody. African Americans, people of color, That's who we talking about, not somebody.
Well,
We
I've
talking
been
about
hold
blacks.
on. I've
We
been
talking about black,
discriminated against black
brown, and
people by
yellow.
I get
Black,
discriminated by
brown, and
both
yellow.
sides. I get discriminated by both sides. And I've
I'm just
always
saying,
hold on,
black, brown, and
hold on.
yellow will
I
never have a fair shake in this country under no circumstance.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but but you try anyways. So you saying that is very contradictory to even why I have you here. It's
No, I don't try. I wanna comment on that, but go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to comment on
you
that.
try. You
I
have
try,
many
and it being
programs to help
contradictory.
the community. But also, we're not going to act like black people don't discriminate as well. They definitely discriminate against their own people on many levels.
Yeah,
So we can't say that they don't. Even me, I've probably taken more discrimination from black people than white people in my life for an ear to my music and all that kind of stuff. Like,
and one thing I want to add to what you just said.
and my
I want
me
to
being
add.
different and me trying to bring a different kind of perspective has been a downfall on both
No,
sides. Best it's been it's
you
look,
can't view it that way, bro. You can't look at it that way. It's not. It's actually been me on the outside looking in, watching your career, watching you over the past 10 years, 15 years even. Me on the outside looking in. You being that different guy, you having that different approach to artistry, not just music. See, a lot of the people who criticize you and a lot of the people who have an opinion about you and your artistry, they're not artists. They only have one aspect that they contribute to music, and that's either hip hop, production, or one aspect. You are artists. You do visual art. You do media art. You do all different formats. You are in tune. That's where your criticism comes from. People fear what they don't understand and they hate what they can't conquer. That's the birth of criticism. Fear and hatred. Period. Anybody who has any criticisms about
well,
you,
and it's funny you said that because it comes
nobody
out.
criticizes anybody. Look, nobody criticizes anybody who's beneath them. They always criticize people who are doing way better than them. Nobody criticizes a person who's they feel like they have exceeded or excelled past. So criticism is the direct indicator of you doing something right.
Well,
I'm just being honest.
and it comes down to the same kind of discrimination, I guess, on both sides, to where it's a lack of understanding of what I'm doing, but it's I mean it I just I guess I feel like I guess I've been supported by both sides, but I also don't think it's fair because I've been thinking about it from things like Martin Luther King happening
Mm-hmm.
to Obama still being called a monkey, like or called not American, and his wife being called a transvestite at the same
Right.
time.
That's America, man.
But
People see things like that.
Trump gets
Look, people
flagged.
see things like that, experience things like that, and they still somehow find a way to say that they don't think America's racist. I don't think everybody like motherfucker, did you just see what I just did you literally just saw your fucking president on here mocking handicaps, mocking people with disabilities, mocking
He
people
was. He
like
was.
what more do you need to say that, oh, I don't support this guy anymore? Like when they start making
I
excuses,
mean,
well, he didn't mean it that way, or what did he do to get shot? Why did the officers shoot him like that? What did he do? When you have majority of Americans saying shit like that, bro, that's the indicator. It's 2020, man. It's 2020. Cars and shit about to start flying, bro. And they still telling you that you probably did something to deserve to get your black ass shot.
I
Bro,
just
we ain't never gonna have a fair shake, bro. No
even
matter what I do in my community, no matter what nobody do in their community, the
now
only
that's not
thing that those things will do is give the people in those communities a fair shake. We
I
can
got a
take a small
question though.
community.
So
Go ahead.
what is the point of me? Because that's the conclusion. I had a whole panel. We had a 2 hour long discussion about this. And guess what? We're here 3 episodes later and we're still and that's the conclusion I came to at the end of that episode, is that it's almost like a bunch of little kids, and it's like the black people go over here, start your own industry or start your own business. It's almost like individually we all need to get our own infrastructure or whatever based off of race, like a bunch of little kids that you need to put in separate rooms. And like, I don't want that to be the conclusion of this conversation. And even, you know, we're gonna
I don't think
get
that's
into
it,
it.
man.
And
My
maybe,
perspective,
well, because
my
you just said that
perspective
they
on.
don't
Go
have
ahead.
any, that they don't have any, that they don't have any rights, or there's no chance of this,
Hope is
or
hope,
no
bro.
hope.
Everybody needs hope.
Well, yeah,
Even our nine people of color counterparts, right? Even they have a certain level of hope that gives them that confidence to tap into their privilege or tap into their pride or whatever it may be that excels them further than we in this country. They have that very initial thing that it takes to be successful in a country like this. Hope. They have that. They have parents that raise them up and tell them all the great things that they can be and accomplish. They have stable
well,
environments.
and
They
see,
have
that's funny
everything that brings forth hope.
because
Hope, bro.
we
That's
do
what we lack. We don't
we
have anything inside of us that tells us
we actually
this
get the
is a
polar
possibility.
opposite. We
This
actually
can
get the
happen.
polar opposite conversation growing up. We get, hey, you're black out here and things are going to be a little bit tougher for you. Yeah. Um,
Right? Take
and
their
it's,
hope away from you before you even know what hope is.
well, and it's funny because I realized, and it was a crazy realization. It was like, damn, I'm also different because of my mom's vision of a better life for me. And it's crazy that I still feel so oppressed. But even um it creates all kinds of problems for me in my life. Like, because it was hard for me, because I would always, because I had a common sense that was deeper because my mother raised me, I got
Mm-hmm.
let into so many doors for hip hop and in our community. I was able to perform at places that a lot of people could not. Um, and I was able to get chances a lot of people weren't able to.
Right?
Um, and eventually I had to turn them down because it just did not feel okay to me. For me, and they
Started
didn't
to feel
like it.
like the token black guy after a while, huh?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And guess what? It
I
wasn't,
know that feeling all too well.
and it wasn't only spared though to just white owners. It was aimed at black owners as well. Because there was a bar, I'm not even gonna give the bar no pub at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. It's
With
a
a black
culture, bro.
owner,
Every industry in this town has a culture, and everybody in that industry abides by the rules of that culture. The bars in this town have a culture. The nonprofit organizations have a culture. The way that they operate, all of them operate the same. That's where people like myself come in. I'm the disruptor. We need disruptors, such as yourself, like the music industry, the hip hop industry in Bloomington. You were looked at as a disruptor because all these artists who felt like they made it put in more work than you. They made it feel like they needed that opportunity more than you needed it, or they deserved it more than you did, or whatever it is. And now you have all this criticism and all these haters and this and the other. But it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're doing everything right. You know what I'm saying? That's just part of it. Success comes with pangs, the growing pangs of life, of success, of everything comes with pain. Any growth comes with pangs, right? So you plan for those, you prepare for those, you have contingencies. You say, I know that I'm stepping into a new tax bracket and my family members are probably gonna think I'm bougie, or they're gonna look at me different, they're gonna treat me different. You know these things before you step into that new tax bracket. So prepare yourself. That way you don't have to have any ill feelings
Yo,
when
I'm
these,
so funny
you
because
know,
I always want to believe that that's not true, and like, so I
you're
always,
just like me, optimist, and that shit hurts every time. Even when you know in the back of your mind they about to kick you in the nuts, it still hurt just as much as if they caught you off guard. It's crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because one of my favorite songs is Wale's song "Hopeless," and he talks about the beauty of feeling hopeless at the same time.
Right. The inspirational power.
Yeah. Well, so,
Everybody can't tap into that though. Think about
but
the masses.
I don't want you to come on here and talk about your growth and then tell people that there's no hope, but and also you're creating
No, 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 no,
platforms.
no,
You're
no, nope,
creating
stop.
platforms
Nope,
for it
stop.
as well.
I don't want my message to be misconstrued. The question was, why do I think people feel, or why do I think people become products of their environment, and to convey why that is to the people who don't come from that walk of life, so they can
Right.
understand why people like myself early in life chose a life of crime at 14 and 15. I can understand how that could be hard for people to understand. Like, why would a 14-year-old choose to do all this bad shit? His parents must be right. That's the first thought you should have. Who the fuck raised this little bad motherfucker? What was his parents' upbringing? What kind of trauma and fucked up, oppressive life did they go through? Everything goes through channels. Trauma, uh, inheritances, ain't nothing different. You die, you leave money. You die, you leave trauma. It just depends on what community you grew up in and what you leaving behind and what you're sharing with your kids on a daily basis. We grow up in poverty. That's what we share. That's what our kids learn. We grow up in traumatic situations. That's what we share. That's what our kids learn. They grow up in uh, country clubs in the states. That's what their kids learn. It's a cultural divide. None of what I'm saying is new. None of what I'm saying. It's a system. It's all about design, bro. We're not in our communities starving, struggling, and going without by chance, bro. They designed it this way.
And
It's
how,
supposed to be this way. This is the system.
well, so which brings us to something I asked way earlier. Uh, now, once you hit the inspirational point of hopelessness, where you dang near became hopeful, yes, the Wale song is called "The Pessimist" for sure, Kari.
Okay, the
Um,
pessimist.
but so because we had a viewer wondering,
I see it.
so but so when did you when what were the walls that you hit, like, because literally, and we're gonna get into it more, you said fuck it, I'm creating my own foundations for the community.
Yeah,
um
and that's that wall. I started my organization in
wait
2008.
wait,
Okay, go ahead.
so why did you want to start that foundation? And no, I need the sauce. I need the what, like, because there's people watching that have no idea where to start, and I don't want them to take away from. I want them to be able to follow in your steps and
I get the direction you're going in.
and
So
be able to, like, because also when I meet a young artist, I don't want them to deal with the heartbreak that I've gone through making music, or to make the same mistakes that I've made. That is my
right,
biggest wish with any young artist, because it will derail so many people's careers,
yeah,
and so
and that's that's your purpose of meeting that artist, whether you know it or not or realize it in that moment. That's your whole purpose of you guys crossing paths, for you to give him everything that he's missing and everything that you can provide.
Yeah.
That's what we don't understand as human beings. Our purpose. When
Woo!
you cross paths with people and you meet people, it's
Anybody.
not it's not by chance. It's for a reason. You don't meet any person on this planet for no reason. Even that lady at the bus stop that you spoke to briefly, that hey, how you doing? That was a crazy article, and you walked away. That short, brief, that meant something. It happened. It occurred for a reason. It's gonna. It plays a role in the path of your life. Every person you encounter. So it's up to you to be conscious of that. Not you, every individual, to be conscious of that and go into every encounter, new encounter of meeting a person, understanding that this person is here for a reason, and trying to figure out actively in that moment, trying to figure out, why the hell am I talking to this person? What is the point? What is the reason that God or whatever higher power that any of us believes in, what is the reason that that individual or power put me and this individual right here, right now, to talk about this specific topic?
And
And
that's
I can say the same about me and you in this interview and the whole everything. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, I got calls from directors, presidents, all kind of people from all these organizations asking me, was I going to the NAACP rally at the courthouse 2 days ago, and was I going to speak? Was I going to say anything about the current climate in the country surrounding the most recent police killing? Um, I told each and every individual that called me and asked me was I going to be there, that I wasn't going to be there, and I had no plans on coming out there to speak. And also, so they understood why I felt that way, I made sure to tell them that I'm not a talker. I'm not the type of person that likes to have rallies and let's sit down and. I'm not a talker. I'm a doer. I like to get shit done. I like to have an impact. I like to make sure that the issues are being addressed and not just talked about. And when I go back to the culture, when I say the culture of these organizations in this town, that's the culture. They like to do a lot of talking. They like to do a lot of meeting. They like to write a lot of grants. They like to do a lot of surveys and studies and feasibility studies and all of that. But no
it's
one wants to
like
do
fake.
anything. No one wants to work. No one wants to actually do something to change things. That's what separates me and the people that I'm tightly partnered with on my current community endeavors. That's what separates me and those individuals from the rest of the organizations and the culture in this town. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break that culture. You know what I'm saying? And that culture, it transcends from organization to individual to socioeconomic background groups to racial groups. Everything is segregated in this town in terms of culture. It's crazy, man, and you don't really see it until you get into the inner dwellings of, city government and corporations. Government and corporate, they're supposed to have this thin line where they don't really communicate or do business to a certain extent. But in this town, there's so much what do they call it, favoritism, nepotism. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of
What does
disturbing cultural traits
what does
when it comes to nonprofits and city government in Bloomington.
what does
But go ahead.
what does nepotism mean?
Uh, that's basically an accelerated form of favoritism. That's me being in a leadership position, and me hiring someone, and you filling out an application, and you're qualified. You got all of the everything. You're the perfect guy for the job. But instead of hiring you, I hire my niece because I have the power to. And I keep everything concentrated in my small circle. All of the opportunities, all of the money, all of the grants, everything is hand to hand to their homies. Nothing leaves their small circles. Everything is you rub my back, I rub yours. That's
And
nepotism.
it goes that way over and over and over again with nobody questioning it or being a disruptor. and in towns, well, because it's interesting because small towns make up the majority of the world, but you'd feel like everything comes from the big cities, and it's almost like a trick. Almost.
Yeah.
Did you read the comment that was placed up there?
But that's a small percentage of that. You can take steps one, two, three out of a I read it, but I can't really.
It's a
I don't
small
understand.
percentage of that. Period. You can take steps one, two, three out of the ladder and expect to get to the top.
I'm not even sure. I'm not.
Can you
What was that
better
comment?
answer that
What was
question?
that comment in response to?
Oh, you talking about nepotism?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But yeah, they're absolutely right. You can take steps one, two, three out of the ladder and still expect to get to the top.
Well, and that's
But
part of the trick. How do you know something is happening if you don't even know what the fuck the word means?
yeah, yeah.
And I
But
mean, it happens over and over again. So how do we get? And because, well, it's I guess it's kind of like I guess in I mean, Trump's not the only person who plays nepotism. He just doesn't hide it. Um, but
right in your
literally,
face, he
it's
do it right in your face, like
it's a
kiss my
world.
ass.
Yeah, like Dennis Rodman convincing him to talk to Kim Jong Un. Like that's insane. Uh, but to
Yeah,
get,
the way the way the president runs his presidential
I have
body, the
a
way that
hard
he
time being
just
mad at him for
dispels and
stuff that
expels and hires
everybody
and
does.
fires, that's
People,
nepotism. Full display.
nepotism is very regular. It controls the world. It controls work.
Yeah,
Um, but it's almost like a community being like, it's kind of like a community though. It's like, oh, you guys are carpenters, so my friends should be carpenters too, or like that kind of system being ran. Like, how do you find a middle ground between letting new ideas um, take place and also letting other communities have that trait? It's kind of seems like with politics and things like that, white people kind of beat us to the punch of it, which you kind of mentioned earlier with the once we've hit a certain point, they're already ahead of us because it's already been.
yeah, man. My whole life, even yours. Think about it, bro. This is the most. This is the most recent change in significant. This is not a small change. This is a very significant change in our culture. This is a direct change implemented to oppress people of color. And it has taken place on a grand scale in front of all of our eyes. And it reads, the message that it sends is, you will never be equal. You will never have the opportunity of your counterparts in this country. And that message is, my whole life, your whole life, everybody watching this thing, our whole lives, a credit score of 720 was the highest you can get and the best credit score you can have. But in the past 15, 20 years, you've seen a surge of black doctors, lawyers, and corporate America elites that own those credit scores and higher. So now you need an 850 to consider yourself having the best credit possible. Every time we cross the finish line and we level up, they move it, bro. All my life, 720 was the highest you can get on a credit score. All my life. You couldn't go no higher than the 720. 720 was the best you can get. Now it's 850 because black people getting 720s now. Oh, you can't have the same credit
I
score
mean, is
access
that
to.
really the only reason though?
No,
Like,
I just want to put that out there. That's the
because
simplest way I can get people to see how they do shit. That if you can't see that for what
yeah,
it is, I don't
well,
know
I'm not
what other
denying it.
examples I can use. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like, this is not a game. This is a game of chess. We've been struggling and fighting and figuring out how to play the credit game, how to
Yeah.
figure out how to get the revolving credit lines. People don't know you can't just have credit cards. You have to have evolving credit. You have to have credit cards. You have to have auto loans, home loans, different kinds of credit. People don't know that. We spent half our life, half our existence on this country, in this country, trying to figure out how to play the credit game. And when we figured it out and started getting them good credit scores and getting them big houses, oh hell no. It's 850 now. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's the example I like to use because you can see it right there. Like there's no other explanation in that. For 100 years, it's been 720. All my life and my mama life has been 720. Now you got these millennials, you got these new breed of people of color that's leveling up. They getting their degrees and their doctorates and shit at 20 and 22, like them. You feel me? Them numbers is changing.
Yeah.
Them percentages is shifting. The African American women is the highest graduating class on this planet. Every country. Black women are graduating more than anybody. When them numbers and the percentages start shifting like that, economy making shifts like that. You feel what I'm saying? Why live on credit? Because you live in America and you cannot access anything in this country without it. You can have $200,000-$300,000 in your bank right now. You can't even go buy a house unless you can get
Well,
credit through a bank. So if you don't got no credit, that 200, 300,000 America, and that's the way they set it up. I didn't make the rules. Get you some credit. Peter and Paul, they go to work. They make deposit $1,700 Americans. Now Peter and Paul, they were 18. When they turned 18, they already had credit because their parents, uh, they put them on all of their lines of credit as authorized users on their credit cards, authorized users. So as their parents were building their credit all those years, when Peter and Paul turned 18, guess what? Peter and Paul can go any car line, get any car with no down payment. They can go get their first home. They can get all these things done the day they turn 18. Now Sam and Mitchell, on the other hand, they didn't have that. They didn't have that. So when they turned 18, they just started building their credit. It took them 3 years, 3 summers to get that credit limit from 250 to $5,000. $5,000 ain't shit. Peter and Paul had $5,000 credit limits on multiple cards when they turned 18. That's what we're up against, bro. This is the scenario. This is how America works. It's never been different and it never will be. That's going to be the divide right there. We're going to always be 10 steps behind. While they're learning about mutual funds and IRAs and equities and all of this, we're going back to get our GED 8 years later. You understand? They designed it that way. It's not a strike against us as a people. It's not a strike against, or it's not uplifting them. It's just the culture that they created, the system that they created. This is how it works. Now you have individuals like me that understand it and know how to break out of it and can develop a small organization in a small town and get a handful of people to see what's wrong and
yeah,
actively over the span
because
of 10 years.
even something that I was gonna say is uh like not like in the most positive way ever, but like if you can do it, I can do it too. And
Yes.
and and
Yes.
and it's funny because I think something that needs to change is what satisfies us with helping the world. Because I always felt like me making music was helping the world. And like I've come in the past like few years to realize, as true as that was, there's so much more to it. And I've been just trying to
That's
find ways.
exactly what I was gonna say. Like, you right.
And it's so,
Yeah.
how how do we how
Go
do
ahead.
we
My bad.
how, how do we get to where I can desire to be a musician who actually wants to change the world and can think of a, or just a human being who actively thinks of ways to help the world and to make it a better place, and where my desires aren't just to sing songs to make people happy, but like, and while understanding and feeling all of this like pain about the system, but like where it doesn't make me hate it, and where I'd never want to be a politician. Are you still there, Matt? Is it glitching? Yo, yo, yo. We're having some technical difficulties. I still, I still love y'all though. We're gonna be right back. Hey, hey, hey. Uh, uh, I feel the pain and I get inspired. I guess that's why I put my hand to the fire. Plus, I know, of course, y'all hear me. I'm well connected, like Wi-Fi. Well, on my Wi-Fi. He'll be back. We're gonna get him back right. It ain't no time to freestyle, Danny. But so I just feel like, yeah, we should join politics. He also, we should get involved in politics more. We should raise our kids to aspire to be more and to be more careful. We're very naive, very reckless, and we just be on whatever. Like, we gotta aspire to be more and make what is considered cool or golden like shift. Like, yeah, you can have a nice whip, you can like all that shit, but to where we value good hearts before any of that. Where a good heart and a good, like, I don't know, they sell us so many dreams. Like, it's not even about working hard. Oh hell no, Mac. I, clearly he had to use the bathroom. That's silly as hell, y'all. Oh my gosh, hilarious. But we got to rework the way that we got to rework what we aspire for and what we want to be like. We have so much power than what we're aware of, and this seems a big step towards taking control of your narrative. So, like, everybody.
What the fuck kind of guess you got? Told his ass, what the fuck is he peeing for? Really? Because I have a bladder and I'm a human, a Homo sapien. The hell?
God, that's hilarious,
These people
bro.
crazy. Huh?
Yo, live
Yeah.
TV is crazy, crazy.
Shit over crazy. Regular.
But you're
I'm still here. I'm just stepping outside. Give me some fresh air. Been cooped up in there for too long. We still got good connection.
yeah. I'm just waiting. Well, you're not visible. Is you done
What
black?
about now?
You done blacked out the screen and shit. Now you're highly
It's
visible.
Blackout Tuesday. Goddamn it! It's appropriate.
This is the most visible your screen's been this whole time.
I
People can
know.
people can finally see your face now.
Ta-da!
Yo, you're hilarious.
It's a damn
we
magic trick.
we had bladder issues taking.
Ta-da! Hold on, hold on, hold on.
See me now? Now you don't.
Ta-da!
Don't do that with all this rioting going on and shit like that.
Stay where you could be seen at, huh? No
Right.
mistakes.
Don't go in the dark.
Don't need no mistakes. God damn it.
So, you were talking about earlier the NAACP involvement in the Bloomington, Illinois protest, and them wanting you to be involved. And it was funny because let's talk about what happened. Let me tell you. Yeah, okay, yeah. Kickoff. Well, you kind of brought it up earlier. So they wanted to host it, and basically, they wanted to host it for clout, right? Basically, is what you're saying. And they're about a lot of talk.
Well, I'm not alluding to anything. Like I said, I've been in Bloomington since 1995, 15 years old. I'll be 40 years old in a month. I've been here mostly over half of my life. And in that time, I've lived on the west side the entire time. Different locations, but I've never not lived in West Bloomington. Um, my entire life, I cannot tell you one time that I've seen the NAACP's presence in my community, or I've lived here over 20 years. I've never seen them do any event
I was shocked by it
that
as
was significant to me. Like everything that I've seen them do for West Bloomington was initiated by another organization, or it was something, whatever the mission was something that wasn't the pressing issue for this community at that time. And an organization that is named the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, I think their agenda should be geared towards the largest group of people of color in that particular community, which is West Bloomington. West Bloomington has the highest concentration of people of color in this city. Mostly black, mostly Latino live on the west side. This is the biggest people of color neighborhood in this town. So, me, I, I don't know if this sounds crazy to anybody, but it don't sound crazy to me that the NAACP should have some presence in this community. People in this community should be able to remember the last event that they did, the last outreach that they did, the last anything that they've done in the community that has the highest concentration of people of color. They don't do shit for black people
and
in
it
Bloomington.
should be everywhere.
I ain't never done shit. I ain't never heard about them doing shit, but a bunch of publicity shit like that shit they did the other day.
Well,
That shit ain't helping nobody. Coming
it's
out here
funny you
letting the
say
fucking
that.
police speak to people who are already upset with the police. Like what the fuck?
Well, because
Come on, man.
there's so many things that don't make sense. Like, because even when I saw the NAACP thing at the rally, I was like, oh, this is the first time they've came out here. And so it's funny you putting it in perspective. And like, it's sad because you can only put it in perspective. Well, because it's so normal to not see their presence there.
Right.
You're
Like
just accustomed
that.
to
Just that
not
one thing.
seeing.
I can go on and on and on, but just that one thing. Like, tell me how you are the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and you have no presence in the community that has the highest concentration of African Americans in a small ass town like this. They can fucking do uh school supply handout every weekend just to say that they're doing something in the
Shit, once a
community.
month. Once a month would be
Anything, bro. I've been living here over 20 years. 20 years. Me. I'm telling you my experience with the NAACP in West Bloomington in the past 20 plus years. Non existent representation from that organization in the community that needs it the most. That
for
is
real.
unacceptable. Now, the leadership at the NAACP, the current leadership is new. That's new. As of, I think, 6 months at the most. They just got a whole new slate of officers, and they're all African American women. The whole leadership of the organization locally is African American women. It's a new leadership. So hopefully the culture will begin to shift, but I have not seen that yet. It's still the same. You know, nobody gives a shit about anybody on the West Side. None of these organizations. And I'm not just going to bash the NAACP. All of them, every organization. I've sat on every board. I've worked with every organization in some kind of partnership. And the compassion for whatever partnership it may have been, the compassion displayed by every partner in the room is never equally matched by me being a resident of West Bloomington. I don't expect it to be because no one lives here, no one understands what's needed, no one really gets it on the level that I get it on. But I at least
Yes.
expect to feel some kind of compassion that is close to what I'm feeling. It's never that, man. It's always about you know what how is this going to make us look? Making this move, what are going to be the responses from the community? You know what I'm saying? How are we gonna be shed? What kind of light is gonna be shed on our organization? And that's the approach that they take. They never take the approach of necessity, the approach of helping, the approach of humanitarian, anything like that. It always starts that way. It always starts with this beautiful mission, this beautiful purpose, and then they get to sitting down and talking, and they get to fucking brainstorming, and when they come up with the final conclusion, it's always something totally different from what we started with. And it's always some bullshit to make the organization look good or put them in a position to write for a bigger grant next year or some dumb shit like that ain't helping nobody, bro. That ain't really about the people. That ain't about the community. You know what I'm saying? Don't nobody really walk out here, knock on doors, and really get and talk to the people and get out here, boots on the ground, bro. Like, why it gotta be me? Why do it have to be me when you have elected officials, you have city councilmen, you have county board members, people you have economic development council staff members that get paid 100 some $1,000 a year to come up with community economic development projects like the
Well,
one that me, a resident, a
and
nobody, just a dude who live in the community. I don't
well,
get paid.
and well, it's I even reached out when I saw Terry Rayner was running for mayor, and I asked him what he was going to do to get minorities more involved in politics. And I got written back and everything and saying it was a great question and he'd love to talk to me about it. Never spoke to me again after that. Didn't try to. And I'm not like, I don't know. What do? You hit them up all the time?
I'm gonna be honest with you.
I
In
got
that
a hold of.
particular instance, as you described it, you should have immediately hit him back with a date and time when he said he's happy to talk about it. You should have been trying to sit down and talk with him.
No, I
Your
did. No,
response
I
should have been,
did.
okay, well,
I
what
did.
about next
I never
Tuesday?
got a response.
No,
Is what I'm saying.
uh, I thought you said that he said he'd love to talk to you about it or something.
Yeah, he said that, and then I
And
said,
then you were
"Okay, let's
supposed,
set up a
no,
time."
you supposed to, I'm going to tell you how it go. At that point, you were supposed to say, okay, what about Tuesday at 3:30? And then he would have said that doesn't work. What about this time? And y'all would have scheduled it right there. And then the next encounter would have been you guys sitting down. That's typically how that should have went. So in those kind of situations, you got to think about it. A mayor, a city council member, a county board member, their itinerary and schedules are full day in, day out. So if they open or extend any opportunity for you to meet with them, it's always going to be based on their schedule. So you give them your availability and they'll get back to you and let you know whether it fits or not. And then they'll give you their availability at that point, and then you let them know if it fits, and you go back and forth basically until you guys find a time that both of y'all can be there. You know what I'm saying? One thing I know about Terry is he's a good friend of mine. He's a real stand up guy.
Okay.
Everything that I've ever brought to him in terms of community, in terms of getting a new park in Sunnyside with basketball rims and working water, in terms of getting new bus routes on the west side so our residents have access to the bus lines that they were trying to take out of our community, in terms of so many things that I can go on and on and on. Well, I've called this guy and I've sat down with him and told him what's going on. He immediately took action to do whatever he can to fix it, right? Or to help in any way he can. So he's very responsive in that way, and I know that about him. And another thing that I know about him that a lot of people don't know is he is the very first Democratic mayor ever in Bloomington. There's never been a Democratic mayor in
Eh,
Bloomington,
eh,
ever. He's the first. You know what I'm saying? So he's different. None of the city council, well, we got new city council members now, but when he first came on board, none of the city council members liked him. None of county board members liked him. Everything that he was about was tearing down the systems. He came in and grabbed a guy like me, 5-time felon, fresh out of the penitentiary, and appointed me to the Bloomington Housing Authority commission of the Housing Authority because the work that I was doing in my community with the local organization, the West Bloomington Revitalization Project. I was chairman of their housing program, and I was overseeing all of their construction projects. And I met him at a banquet at Illinois State through the alderman in this community, and she introduced us and told him about what I was doing with their organization. And oh well, we got an opening at the housing authority. You're already in affordable housing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bam, I'm appointed to the housing authority board. So those are the kind of things or relationships that form by being in these circles. And one thing I want to add to that particular story, the alderwoman for this community up until last year when Jen Carrillo unseated her, um, Karen Smith, 20 plus year alderwoman in this town. She is a big reason why I'm involved with a lot of these organizations on these boards or a lot of this community activism. She has given me a ton of guidance and resources to get me this far, this deeply entrenched in this community in that aspect. So she's always been a good friend of mine, always been an asset to not just me, but everybody in this community. And even her not being in that position anymore, she's still that. You know what I'm saying? A good friend and definitely an asset to everybody in this community. As we see the shift in the county board leadership, we can only anticipate what's to come. We know what's been the situation for this community. All we can do is sit back and see if these new leaders are going to do something different. And if they don't, we get to exercise our right to vote and we get to remove those individuals from office. And
and another, and to get into your main causes, dang, there's just so much to unpack, man.
we're gonna
But
have to do it to be continued.
well, just because I definitely want to talk about your councils and stuff because we haven't even gotten into that yet. And also, we got organizations that you guys can donate to help a lot um, of what we're talking about. There's the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund that you can donate to. But also, you have started an organization. You really care about the food area, of your if you can get set up somewhere, because no, most of my guests like get or like not move around so much, you it takes away from the quality, and I really want people to hear what you're saying. So if you
I
take what
got you,
we're
bro.
talking about seriously, I like our
I
viewers
got
might
you.
as well.
I got you.
Okay, so so a lot of underprivileged areas do not have enough grocery stores. I know, and it's crazy because I would be out there not able to walk, not able to drive, having to catch the bus and stuff like that to be able to get groceries from Walmart. But I'd end up going to gas stations, uh, overpriced places, spending way more on my food because I didn't have a proper means of transportation on a side of town where you and I never knew. I experienced this forever, and I never knew what it was called.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
And
called
I
a
did not find
food
out
desert.
until today.
Yep,
It's called a what?
a food desert, and it is exactly what the name entails. Um, individuals. A food desert is classified by the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, uh, as any community that has a certain population of individuals in a certain age range, which is the typical age range for any median income. I think, what is it, 0 to 55 or something like that. But basically, this is the scale that they use for all of the criterias in America, the census, the this, the that, or whatever. So basically, it is described by the distance between the residents in the community and access to affordable fresh produce. So West Bloomington has been designated as a food desert by the United States Department of Agriculture. They made the official designation in 2014, but there has been a lack of access to groceries in this community for over 20 years. So it has been a food desert for way longer than the actual designation has been on record with the USDA. So West Bloomington is a food desert. People in
Right,
this
because I
community
was like,
do
when
not have access to groceries.
I was gonna ask, what was a gas or a grocery store that would have stopped it from being labeled 20 years ago? What was there?
There was a grocery store. It was called, what was it called? Hannah's Market, and it was actually on Market Street, right across the street from Holden Homes, kind of catty corner from the currency exchange on that corner, kind of diagonal from that currency exchange. It was a grocery store there. And a little bit of history that I learned from being on the Bloomington Housing Authority board as a commissioner was that property across the street from Holden Homes was owned by the Housing Authority at the time that grocery store was there operational about 20 years ago. There was an agreement made with the Housing Authority and the city of Bloomington to swap properties. So the city of Bloomington gave the Housing Authority a large portion of property, which is the property on Washington Street that you ride past that has the fence area before you hit Mid Central Community Action. So that big, huge lot of unused land was traded to the Housing Authority by the city, and the Housing Authority gave the city that small piece of property right there on the corner of Market Street and Henshaw. And immediately afterwards, the grocery store was shut down and tore down. Um, if you ask me, hey, if you ask me, it was a strategic move made by the city officials of Bloomington to take that grocery store from that community, the very last grocery store on the west side, and the only grocery store that close to that large apartment complex with so many young children and families that needed access. There was no other reason other than to disenfranchise that the city would have done such a thing.
So it was
You
still
give,
doing well. It was still success. It was a successful store.
yeah, yeah. The history of West Bloomington and food and access to food is the total opposite of what it is now. West Bloomington was a neighborhood plentiful of markets. If anyone wants to go to the McLean County History Museum archives and just Google the history of food access in West Bloomington, it was the total opposite. A lot of people don't know this, but the entire city of Bloomington and Normal started in West Bloomington. The entire city was created right here on the west side, right on Washington and Morris, that crossing area where all the train tracks are right there. That was the train depot. That's where all of the industries were, all the factories, everything. All the old factories you see under the bridge on Main Street, the warehouse district, kind of like Mill Street, Jackson, and Roosevelt, that area, that was our industrial area. The west side was Bloomington. There was no east side. There was nothing but the west side when it started. Everything was here, all the stores, all the markets. There was a grocery store or a market every 4 or 5 blocks in West Bloomington. Any direction you went, we had over 14 to 15 of them in the beginning, and then State Farm came, built their corporate office over on the east side, and all the money that they generated and all the tax incentives that they got from the city, that's what developed Veteran Parkway and everything on the opposite side of Veteran Parkway. And once State Farm came here and became the biggest employer, of course, everybody started moving off the west side and moving to the east side. And once that happened, you have all the homeowners, all the money, all the resources moving that way, and then that's the disinvestment. People stopped buying homes. Businesses started packing up and moving on the east side. All of the train depots shut down. All the coal mines shut down. Nestle Bike moved away. They disenfranchised. They packed up and left, and basically left all the black people over here, and built the whole new white Bloomington on the east side. And that's the real history of Bloomington and how we became what we are today. The west side was the hub for food. Everybody came to the west side to get groceries. This is where you had to come to get groceries. But now you can't even get an onion in this community. If you need a pair of shoelaces, you can't get it in your neighborhood. If you need a hair comb, hairbrush, the very basic necessities, you cannot get that
Walgreens,
in
but
this community.
overpriced as ever.
No, you can go to Walgreens, but I'm a 77-year-old woman that lives on Mulberry and Catherine. That's a mile and a half walk for me. That's not an option for me. When people say things like that, that just goes to show that people really don't understand the differences between the social economical backgrounds and what they afford. Um, yeah, Walgreens is right there. Kroger's is right there. And Walmart is right down Market Street. But the reality of the situation is 80 to 90% of the people who live in this neighborhood don't own cars. We don't have cars. We don't have that option to say that Walgreens is right around the corner. That's a long way for my grandmother or my auntie or the single mom with 4 kids. That's a long walk to carry $400 worth of groceries. Like the things that people say make no sense. Yeah, Walgreens is right there, but how the fuck I supposed to get enough groceries to feed 4 babies and get it back? Walgreens don't provide that kind of groceries, and the grocery store that does, I can't get there.
hmm
Like this is the situation for 80% of the people in this neighborhood. All of these research studies have been done. The most recent study on childhood hunger in West Bloomington, over 100 children, over 100 children go to bed every night hungry in my neighborhood. I don't know what's happening on the other side of Veterans, but I know what's happening in West Bloomington. Over 100 kids climbing their bed every night with their stomachs empty. That's a fact. And don't nobody give a shit.
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying, bro. Don't
so
let these people
that's
fool
why
you. They talk all that shit. They don't give a fuck about us. If we don't start taking care of our own community, if we don't start doing the shit you see me doing by myself, if it
well,
ain't 20
we're
of
gonna
us
get
doing it,
into that.
if it
That's
ain't
why
50 of us doing it,
I want
come
you to
on, man.
for surely talk about the West Market Council because you've actually created a council to protect the stores that includes Rosie's Grill and Red and Blue. But Rosie's Grill, they still went out of business. What does your council do for them?
So basically, the West Market Street Council was formulated, like you said, to protect the businesses in our community, and also to give those businesses a presence at city council meetings, at county board meetings, at meetings where business owners don't necessarily feel welcome, meetings where information pertaining to these business owners and the success or failure of their businesses, things are being discussed at these meetings that they should be privy to. Um, what this council does is makes it comfortable for these individuals to feel like they should be a part of these discussions or a part of these meetings. And in the cases that they're not able to be, council members can represent these business owners and their interests. And also, it is to form a condo association amongst these businesses where we pay weekly or monthly dues, and these dues are stockpiled in a fund that can be used by these businesses to do things in the community to stimulate the community in whatever way that it may be needed to, the stimulation may be needed at that time. So when you have businesses in your community, for the most part, there should be some kind of community enrichment fund set up at these organizations or businesses for individuals or organizations such as mine. So when I do a block party, a community event where I'm doing school supplies or a food drive or a homeless Christmas dinner for the homeless or something like that, I can go to these businesses and say, hey, this is what we're doing in the community. We want everybody to pitch in. And, instead of me going to this business as an individual, I'm going to this business as a representative of this council. And the council
Yeah.
represents all these businesses. So we work together and we create a different culture in our community, separate from the business culture of the community as a whole. So
How
what
do
we're
you
doing is
start? How do you start a council? Just
you
by
just
going
do it.
around and speaking. Yeah.
You just do it, man. I went and talked to the businesses, told them what our plans were. We, my partner and I, Lori Bell, we have been working on a project called the West Market Street Plaza. For the viewers or listeners who are tuned in, the West Market Street Plaza is the plaza on Market in Catherine where Red Fox and Rosie's Grill and Boost Mobile Store was housed. Anybody who's been by there recently will see that the property is gated off. All three businesses, all three structures are gated off and planned to be demolished. Uh, After the demolition, there is well, not after. Currently, there is a economic development project that we're working on, the West Market Street Plaza, which includes a full service grocery store and businesses. Three that we know of thus far that have existing businesses in other parts of Bloomington that are have showed an interest on relocating or opening a second location in West Bloomington in the new plaza that we're building. So basically, we're bringing affordable, accessible groceries to a community that did not have access to groceries. That's the whole basis of this project, ending the food desert in West Bloomington and providing fresh, affordable produce and groceries to the people in this community. That's the mission. That's what the whole project is about. While we were figuring out all of the things that's needed to complete that project, we realized that, hey, there isn't any businesses in our community as well. We don't have business representation. We don't have a economic development hub in our community. There's nothing in West Bloomington that generates money, that generates tax revenue for the city. There's nothing in our neighborhood that makes the city's eyebrows raise and say, hey, this is something we should invest in. Hey, there's money to be
Because
made
that's
on
what we
taxes.
care
Hey,
about. Yeah. Well, that's what they care
right,
about. It's
right,
crazy we know what they care about and just
right,
don't give a fuck about trying to meet that need. And they love that. We make their job
right.
so easy.
So easy, man. And you know the worst thing that we do on this west side as residents? We do not
I
participate
mean,
in the political process.
the people watching are
People
literally
don't vote on the
are,
west side, and
are
that's why they
all
shit on
over.
us.
So a lot of times when you're talking about something, like I want you to talk about it specifically, but also think because it's going on everywhere. Every place
Yeah,
has these same
yeah,
exact issues.
yeah.
Textbook.
There's food deserts all across the country. In every neighborhood, there's a food desert. In every city, there's a food desert. This is not by
Yo,
chance. This
make
is by
sure
design.
you notice. 'Cause
And look, and in every food desert is in the black community.
awareness
That
is key.
is
Because I
not
would
by
sit there.
chance.
I
This is
would
by
sit there,
design.
and I knew I was in a food desert, and just didn't know where to begin or how to help, and it bothered me. And
Yep.
sometimes, like, you got to do something when you feel away, because it bothered me, and I never even tried to start. So we got to
Now
change.
my partner, and you're right, and that's the perfect approach. You are absolutely right. And to touch on what you just said, my partner who is helping me with this project, Lori Bell, she's a scholar, and she wrote a article that was published in the National Journal. It's called Recipe for Disaster, and it's basically about the food deserts and food access in America. And the article was so good, like I said, it got published in the National Journal, so it's like a national publication right now. Anybody, you can just go Google it, Recipe for Disaster, and once you read the article, I can introduce you to the lady who wrote it. That's my partner, and she was just on this mission. She's been on this food access mission in Bloomington for over 15 years. She started it with Reverend McSwain for rest his soul.
Rest in
She
heaven.
started it.
That's what I was about.
Yeah, she started it with Reverend McSwain, and they did some wonderful things back in the day. And when she found out the current state of what was going on here in town, she wanted to do something about it. She went around meeting with all these people, asking people to help her and partner with her, and get the ball rolling. And she reached out to someone, and they pointed her in my direction. And she just cold called me. Never met me a day in her life. Just called me up. Hey, I heard a lot of wonderful things about you. You're doing in the community. I got a project I'm working on. I just want to see if you were interested in partnering. And when she told me what it was, of course, let's get it done, right? So it's been 2.5 years, man. We've been working on this, and we're at a point where we have identified the property. We've identified funding sources. We have renderings for the property. Matter of fact, I can share some of those with you guys now. Got a second. So basically, we did everything that the Economic Development Council of Bloomington should have done. They should have went out and researched what's needed in that community, how to get it done, where to start, who to. They should have done all of these things. My partner and I have done all of these things. So basically, in essence, we have for the past 2.5 years have been working as Economic Development Council city officials without the pay, pretty much. Now that we've gotten the project to the point where it's shovel ready, where we can just basically make all the deals, sign all the documents, and start tearing and rebuilding. Now everybody wants to come on board, and everybody wants to, get their photo op or get their name or on some document to say that they was a part of it.
Right.
But the truth is, me and my partner have done this painstaking work for 2.5 years, all by our lonesomes. Over the year, well, I won't say all by our lonesomes. Over the years, we have created a network of individuals who have been helping us and have been propelling this project. But the fuel, the fire behind this project, just two citizens who were fed up, two citizens, two people, regular people, pay their taxes, go to work, come home, and just said, enough is enough. We're going to build our own fucking grocery store. Nobody wants to help us. They know what's happening. The City of Bloomington Economic Development Council over the past 15 years have done maybe 9 feasibility studies on the feasibility of the success of the grocery store in West Bloomington. They've brought in Aldi, Save a Lot, IGA, you name it. They brought them all in. They've all it's landscaped the whole West Bloomington, looked at every property that could possibly house a grocery store, and every chain has said that there is not enough profit. First of all, in this community, we don't have enough buying power. The biggest consumers on the planet don't have enough buying power. Bullshit. There's not a big enough footprint for a grocery store, and the parking required, and
Well,
they
we
made up they
can't.
made up every excuse. They
Well,
made up
we
every
can't. No,
excuse
I
as to
think you
why they
got
didn't
the
want to put a grocery store in our neighborhood.
well. There's not enough people to support the. Well, there is. Ooh, for
There
sure.
is, bro. There
Yeah,
is.
but
Nobody wants to get on the
well,
brown F in front of the bus stop on Market Street and go all the way to Walmart. Nobody wants to get back on the bus with 90 bags of groceries, get back off the bus on Market, and got to walk 8 blocks to Taylor Street to your house. Nobody wants to do that, bro. They do that because that's the only fucking way they're gonna get groceries in their house. You put a grocery store in their neighborhood, they're gonna go to that
there's
store. They're gonna
also
shop
like
in their
at the same
neighborhood.
time, Bloomington is well, and I'm not trying to be like on their side, like whoa,
No. I'm not
there's
saying you
not
are. I'm
enough
just putting it
people
in perspective.
because even
I'm
if
just
there
putting it in
isn't enough
perspective.
people, the infrastructure is set up for there to not be enough people, so they can say that anyways.
Right. It's all by design. It's not by chance. They designed it this way.
Well,
Like
and
I
it's so
said,
funny because we go to
they
places,
playing a mental game, man.
but
We
I mean,
ain't here yet.
we got to think there, and it's crazy. But I feel like it's possible, and I feel like we're getting there, and
Oh yeah.
even setups like this, it's something,
Yeah.
it's an example to take away from where you get to really hear. And of course, it's always been around. This information has always been available, but like I know my heart and my approach is gonna change in the way that I want other people to the way that I want other people to think. It's
Yeah.
it's all about inspiring people, and I feel like um just being more patient and cautious with with our thinking in general is a huge step in love and compassion, and just a really growing, like, obviously I think people are figuring out activism is kind of exciting, and it
Yeah.
has been a journey for you, um and a passionate one. It needs to be perceived that way, uh and so hopefully
And I can't. I think the only way to get to that level of perception in terms of how activism is viewed by any individual is to. It takes time. Like when I started this, man. Like I said, Karen Smith, the alderwoman for this neighborhood, I started my organization in the penitentiary. I was in the penitentiary serving time when I thought about my children coming to see me, looking at me through a piece of glass, and reading all of the wonderful things and the letters that my kids were writing me, and and realizing all the time that was being wasted that I couldn't get back, and understanding that the population that I was around in that environment, I'm looking at a bunch of lost individuals. They're not even thinking like I'm thinking. And they got way more children than me. They got family members. They got a lot more out there than I do. And they're not viewing this being incarcerated the way that I am. And that made me understand that there's a bigger calling on what I should be doing. I should be helping people. I should be not helping people, helping my people specifically to understand some of the things that are being exposed to me on a daily basis, being locked in this cell, right? So, what's the point of being locked in this cell and having all of these realizations if you're not going to do anything with them, if you're not going to take these realizations and make them affirmations, you know what I'm saying? Or not just affirmations, but
yeah.
actual actionable items, you know what I'm saying? Um, so when I came home, I literally wrote out my whole organizational structure, my programming for my mentorship program. I wrote it all out, business plans, everything while I was incarcerated. And when I came home in 2009, I hit the ground running and got right to it. Um, and the very first event that we did was a block party. And the idea craziest thing. The idea came from my then, I believe, 7-year-old daughter, and she said, "Hey, Daddy, you know what? We should do we should do a block party for all the kids in the neighborhood, because all the kids always hung out at my house or in my yard, because I had replicated my basement as a grade school classroom from back in the day when I grew up. I worked at the old junior high on Washington Street in Washington and what's that, Clinton? No, Washington, and the junior high right there in Washington. I worked there as the maintenance supervisor, and one of my tasks was to clean out the basement. Upon cleaning out the basement, I found all this old school memorabilia, the old Felicia Rashad reading this fundamental posters and the pull down atlases and all of that stuff we had in the classrooms when we were kids. So I was like, I'm not throwing this stuff away. This is vintage stuff. So I took a lot of it home with permission, of course, and I replicated a classroom in my basement. And all the kids in my neighborhood, they played in my basement, played school, ran in and out the yard, recess in my yard, and all that. Anyway, my house was the house to hang out for all the kids. So my daughter came up with this idea to do a block party. So me and my wife saved up some money. First year we did it out of our pockets. We probably spent about $1,100, $1,200 renting, dunk tanks and bounce houses and all that stuff, just for the kids on our block, just for our kids that we know. And word got out in the community, and the alder woman heard about it, and she came and talked to me, and she was like, "Hey, this is a wonderful thing you're doing. Have you ever thought about sponsorships?" And I'm like, "No, this isn't about that. This isn't some corporate thingy thing. This is just for the babies right here on this block." Long story short, the next year we reached out, got a couple sponsors. Third year we reached out, got a couple more sponsors.
Was it
Fourth
was
year,
it your event that I got when they egged on the west side? Where I got they had the people circle that shit. Our own people were trying to deter what we're trying to do, man. You
yeah.
don't remember there was the food thing in the back of people circled it and egged the old lady, and I was literally the only person who ran and fought him. And uh
Oh no, that wasn't my event. We never had any incidents like that at my event. We've only had one incident, and gratefully, we've only had one incident at my event ever. And this year would be the 10th year that we've been doing the block party, and we had one incident, and that was last year, I believe, or the year before, and it was just some teenage kids, out there fighting or whatever. It was like a little incident. I was away at the store getting more ice for the snow cone machine. When I got back, the incident had occurred and was over with, and everybody was back to partying. So it wasn't much of an incident at all. But that particular incident that you described, that wasn't it, and so that
yo,
wasn't my event.
that shit was crazy, and I was so mad because it was a great time until then, and it sucks
Yeah,
because then we ruined our own good time.
pretty much. Yeah,
So we got to
and
stop
it's
doing all that shit.
true, definitely. But
Well,
yeah, that event it kind of evolved into, from there, all of the different invitations to be on this board or that board, and being appointed to boards and
so it kind of called
being
you in a way.
right. So it wasn't one of those things that I was passionate about in the beginning. It just kind of evolved into that, you know, getting on one board and that mission for that organization, and getting involved in their mission, and really diving into it, and you know what I'm saying? And then getting on the board with the next organization, NAACP, and
Well, it's
being the
so
chair.
crazy because it only sounds boring because the people doing it are fucking off. Whenever there's actually like just like what you said, they're wasting time talking about doing something instead of doing it. And so
And don't get me wrong, man.
of
They
course,
have great intentions. They have great intentions. Some people just aren't actionable. Everybody's not don't have that activism,
it's got to change.
bone in their
It's got
body.
to
Like
change.
everybody doesn't. Yeah, everybody's not gonna be on boots on the ground out in the community making changes. Some people
Well,
gonna
it
have to make
doesn't
those
even
changes
have
from
to
behind
be
their
though.
keyboard.
It doesn't really have to be. It's really easy and really simple. It's just like thinking the right way. and having
Right.
a more 3D perspective sooner, because we're always like on the brink or like tinkering away at something and change, and it's about designing us to be able to really bring it forward, and where everybody, where like it's the norm to think like this. It
Right.
has to be, and it doesn't take activism, it takes common sense.
You would think. You
So
would fucking think.
anyways, I think we blacked them out on Tuesday with the longest episode that I have had to date. 2 hours, 10 minutes. Yo, but they gotta know. And we didn't even get into the silver
Right.
clothing brand. We didn't.
Right.
Yo,
It's cool
hopefully
though, man. We got into the important parts. That's all that matters,
that's all
man.
that mattered to me. So yo, it was a blessing. Hopefully we can change the world. It seems like it's taking the right step. The aim has shifted a little bit. I even got a great white light shining on me. But no, so
Hey man, I appreciate you, man, reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity, man. And like I said in the beginning, man, this platform is a necessity, and you guys creating this platform is amazing. And I wish you guys all the success in the world, and sponsorships and everything that it takes to make this platform as successful as it can be, man. Y'all keep pushing, and anytime, man, reach out to me. Let me know.
hey, let's get it. And for y'all interested, you can find him at Silverback 35, and you can,
Yep.
and
Pretty
the
much on any social media platform, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Silverback
Silverback
35.
35, and also you can follow the West Market Street Council on
Yeah.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yep. Follow us as we continue to develop this grocery store and this economic development hub in this low income community. So you definitely want to follow that West Market Street Council on Facebook. Follow our page. We give updates and everything
Imagine
on the
if
progress.
imagine if you had 10 people thinking like you. It would be
That's what I was gonna mention earlier.
just
We
10.
were talking. I
Just
was like, it's just me, and look at the impact. What if it was 10 of us, or 10 of me, or what if it was? Because I'm pretty sure I'm a mimic of someone else who came before me, right? What if it was 10 of me, or versions of them, or however anybody wants to look at it? What if it was just more than just me in this small town, man? This is a little town, bro. We can control this town. We can run politics in this town. Like, this ain't the world. This ain't
easy.
that.
It's
This
so
ain't the
easy.
United States. This is McLean County. It's enough of us. It's enough African Americans that live in McLean County that is over the age of 18, eligible to vote. It's enough of us to run this town. We can elect the mayor that we want. If we don't like what the state's attorney is doing, we can vote his ass out. We have that power. We have the numbers. Numbers don't lie. It's enough.
Hey,
It's enough African Americans in McLean County to run
uh,
politics.
hey,
All we got to do is get
we need
involved
enough
and
good
start voting.
people. We need enough
If
good
we
people.
start
We
voting,
need
we can
enough
run
good
politics
people.
in this town.
We need enough good people. We need good people with right hearts of all colors and
Yeah, yeah.
ethnicities. It's not just
We
about
need
black.
electable. We need electable individuals, of course, but
Exactly.
that's not what I'm talking about. Be dad, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you have city officials, city council members that are elected to represent our neighborhood. It is their job to make sure that the people in this neighborhood is taken care of. And they don't do shit. You know why? Because they're going to get reelected regardless if they take
Regardless.
care of us or not.
So at
Because we
least they
don't
don't
vote.
have to work for their job. Is yo
No,
yo.
no, no. You missed it. You missed it. Let me back it up. They don't they don't cater to our community. They don't do anything in our community that they're supposed to do because they're going to get reelected with or without our vote because we don't vote. We are not deciding whether or not they get reelected. So they don't have any incentive to give a shit about our community. And we think that sitting around complaining and moping to each other is going to fix something. What fixes it is when you show your ass up to the polls and you vote and they lose their seat and they no longer in that power. But because they don't have to worry about that from us, because they know we ain't getting up and going to vote, they leave our communities in the shape that they're in, and they get reelected year after year. The city council member for this neighborhood, Scott Black, he been reelected twice. But there's a food desert, and the babies in this neighborhood going to bed hungry. That lets you know that people don't vote in this neighborhood. Voters, shit like that don't happen in neighborhoods where people vote. You don't see none of this shit that's happening over here happening on the east side. Let a motherfucking sidewalk crack on the east side.
Well,
It's 15 it's
and
15
it's so
residents at the
funny
city council meeting complaining.
because
Soon as
even
the
me,
sidewalk crack, they at the city council meeting complaining. Next Tuesday, they sidewalk getting fixed. What's happening in our neighborhood?
well,
How
even
many people in our neighborhood, how many people on the west side go to city council meetings?
we
How
make
many people
fun of
know when they
neighborhood.
are? How many people know when the county board meetings is? How many people know what the city council do? What are they responsible for? What they supposed to be doing? What they not doing? How many people know what the county board responsible for? What's their job? What they supposed to be doing? What they not doing? Don't no motherfucker in this community care about politics, bro. And that's why our community look like it look. It ain't got nothing to do with the system that they set up. The system exists, but politics, bro. That's how you control shit in your community, especially a small town like this. This ain't Chicago. This ain't Detroit, Los Angeles, Texas. No parts of Texas. This is a small population town with a large population of African Americans. If we voted in this town, we could run this motherfucking town. We could literally say the people, the African Americans 18 and over, if we work together and collectively voted, we can say, Mac Dot, you finna be mayor. And they can't do shit about it because it's more of them than it is. It's more of us than it is of them. Numbers don't lie, bro. You can go back and look at every election, the past 3 mayoral elections in this town, and tell me how many votes he won by. And then take that mayoral election number, just say he won by 13,000 votes, or he won with 13,000 total votes. Now, take that same number and Google how many African Americans in McLean County are over 18. Double that number, which means the mayor got elected with 13,000 votes. I'm just throwing numbers out there just to put it in perspective. If the mayor got elected with 13,000 votes and it's 32,000 African Americans eligible to vote, who control who the next mayor gonna be? That large voting population, right? But black people don't vote. They think they doing something. They think they making a stand. They really think they doing something by not voting. Playing yourself. That's what you're doing. You playing yourself. That's
I,
why your community look like it look. That's why the politicians don't feel like they gotta do shit for you because you ain't gonna. If
well,
you vote or not, they getting reelected.
I'm honestly disgusted with
Yeah,
myself.
it's very disgusting.
I mean, now mind you,
We hurting each other, man.
I've voted for years, but I just haven't done enough. I've done the iceberg of this, and I've always wondered about more. But it's really simple. It's not even that hard, and it should just be like brushing your teeth. It's not even hard. It's just shifting the way that you move and
Now
think
you get it.
of.
When it's that simple to understand, and you have all these scholars and these professors and all of these college graduates in these positions, and they sit here and tell you, "Well, I don't see it that way. I don't think that's it." That lets you know right there, man. They ain't never gonna ever give us a fair shake and give us equality in it. What we only thing we
So
can
we gotta
aspire to
take it.
do is
That was your
rebuild our own
opening.
shit, man.
That was your
Rebuild
opening
Black Wall
message.
Street.
Is that we can take it.
Yeah, rebuild Black Wall Street.
This
If we
man
want
said, "Take
equality,
it."
if we want a fair chance, that's our only shot.
Oh
Entrepreneurship,
man.
rebuilding our own community. But yeah, man, this been one of those
Woo!
extended versions, man. Check in with me, man, in the near future, man. Let me know what's going on, man.
Hey, you know the vibes. We're here to entertain and inspire and educate. Educate.
That part.
Hey, let's get out of here, my dude. Thank you.
All right, man.
Black Tuesday, we blacking out this man.